The only real God is the one that you believe in. Start looking for the God in others. And if you find you're tuning into a wave, well then I don't know much about being saved.
Welcome in, everybody.
Hello, everybody. Animals, humans, aliens.
All friends.
All friends.
Welcome. This is Spiritual Philosophy Chatter with the Joneses. I'm Danny Jones.
And I am Samantha Jones.
And welcome to all listeners, as you said.
Yes.
And this is episode 19. What is it?
This is What the Animals Tell Us.
Wow, cool. I can't wait to hear what they tell us.
Yeah, this is kind of like a part 2 to episode 11, Animal Communication.
Okay.
Because we had a great response to that episode that people wanted to hear more about what the animals have to say. So Here we are to say more.
Yeah, you might actually hear ours, too. They're sleeping right now in the room, but...
They snore pretty loud, though, so yeah.
Sometimes we have to edit them when they're a little ridiculous. But
we do, yeah. Because they're a little crazy, but we love them.
So, cool. Well, that'll be a good one.
Yes.
Do you have anything you want to talk about from last week?
You know what I want to talk about? Our iTunes reviews.
Cool.
Do you know how many we have?
How many?
18.
Whoa.
I know, because last time I told you we had 13, and now we have 18.
You're right.
So we're growing. And
Good.
So I wanted to say thank you to everybody that has done that for us, whether it's Facebook or iTunes or wherever you've left a review. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's how people are going to get to know us and how we build our audience. And so we really appreciate those reviews. So I just wanted to read a couple of them.
Cool. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So this one says, fun and insightful. Love what you guys are doing here. Such a great podcast. This is deep. Y'all check it out.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's nice. Sweet and to the point.
Yes, exactly.
I like that.
And then the other one is, do you believe? Even if you don't, this show is for you. Learn about the spiritual world and maybe you will end up becoming a believer.
Wow.
Cool, huh?
That's cool, because that kind of makes it almost sounds like it could be from somebody that doesn't necessarily, but they find it intriguing, and that's even kind of more interesting.
Yeah. For a lot of people, I wonder if that's the case, that maybe they just have no idea or they're on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Because I remember they used to talk about Howard Stern's and how like half of his listeners listened to him because they hated him and wanted to hear what he was going to say next. And the other half listened because they loved him and wanted to hear what he was going to say next. Yep. So it's like even those people that may not really like what we're doing here, we're still here talking to you. We love you. Peace and love.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're not causing any harm.
Nope.
They could change the channel or the podcast or whatever anytime they want.
Yep. So. We are all welcome to our opinions.
Yeah. And again, it's like some of this... to a lot of people might just be opinion.
Right.
You know, it
and
might
that's fine.
Just be your faith, your belief, your opinion, and that's totally okay.
Mm-hmm.
But to open your mind to other things isn't necessarily bad either. I mean, if I could put an analogy, it would be like going to an art museum and expecting to see a lot of different kinds of art.
Right.
That's what makes it more interesting.
Right. I totally agree with you. So that is what I wanted to talk about from iTunes. And again, thank you, everybody. We really appreciate it.
We totally dig that.
Yeah.
That's very nice. Thanks for taking the time. And
thank you.
Not only for listening, but to do that.
Absolutely.
Means a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Well, here we go. Episode 19.
What the animals tell us.
Well, what do they tell us, baby?
Oh, my gosh. I'm so excited.
You tell us. Okay. What do they tell us?
I'm going to. So first, I just want to give a very brief background because we did do another episode on this, episode 11, Animal Communication. So there were some questions that were asked on our Facebook page that I won't answer in this one because they were already covered in there.
Correct.
So if your question isn't answered in this episode, refer back to episode 11. So a little bit about me, if you're new to our podcast, is I am an animal communicator. I have been most of my life. I'm also a pet sitter and dog walker. I've been doing that for like 20 years. And I groom birds, and I've done a lot of rescue work. So I have a very large background when it comes to working with animals. Animals are my passion. It's where my focus is. If I could do this podcast every week about animals, I would. I could just sit here and go. So I'm not a vet. I'm not an expert per se. It's just my passion, and I have a lot of experience in it with all different kinds of animals. So that's where I'm coming from here.
Good you did that.
Yeah. So let's see where to begin. For this episode, I'm going to ask people to not think of animals the way that maybe you were raised to think of them.
Right.
Because it does take stepping outside of that picture of what a dog or a cat is to see a little bit deeper into things.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. Animals obviously can't talk to us. They can't just open their mouth and say, hey, I don't feel good, or I'm hungry, or I'm this, or I'm that. And so for whatever reason, this makes a lot of people believe that they're not intelligent or that they don't have feelings.
Right.
But the thing is that they communicate on a different level.
Right.
They communicate telepathically.
Right.
They do have, just like us, they have body signals and maybe different verbal cues that they give. But for the most part, they communicate with each other telepathically.
Right. Which, that being the first one, which is I think the most important one, is really that misconception of, oh, they can't talk, they must be dumb.
Exactly.
And that right there, when my mindset changed on that, I began to see them the same.
Right.
That they're just another soul, another spirit in a different form.
Right.
In front of me.
Right.
And when they exit, they go the same place that I go when I exit.
Yep.
So there really is no difference. Actually, I think they're more intelligent than us.
Yes.
For a lot of reasons, because they can communicate telepathically. Their lives are just more simple.
Yes. I totally agree with you. They don't have the same kind of issues we have. Now, does a dog like our black lab Sabbath, who's 6 years old, think the same way that we do? No, absolutely not. They still think like children.
Yes.
But Sabbath is middle-age-ish, okay? So he thinks more on like I don't know, let's say maybe 8, 9, 10-year-old, okay? He's not like a small child, but he's not a full senior dog either. As the dogs get older, they learn more. They calm down. They become different. You see differently in them. But people just expect that from the beginning, if an animal knows, if an animal has that kind of ability to communicate, that they'll use it. And just like an infant, that's not true. They have to learn.
That's a wonderful analogy, because it really is like a kid.
Yeah.
You know?
More so than what people realize.
Right.
You know? And I asked that to our listeners is, do you look at your pets as a member of the family? And 97% said yes.
Oh, yeah.
I've always looked at animals as members of the family, and I have a hard time with animals just being thrown outside or locked in a cage.
Right.
That's honestly, for me, I love doing this work, but things like that are what really bother me, seeing them, like the animals.
Because you're such an empath.
Exactly, and I feel their pain.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I started thinking about along that is what animals would like us to know about that is about as far as moving homes and being given away and being put up, in the shelter or whatever. And I know that you can't compare animals to humans. You just can't. But at the same time, dropping an animal off at the shelter is it's like dropping your child off at the fire station, if you ask me. We all have different situations in our lives, and things arise and things happen where you may have to get rid of a pet. And that is okay.
Yeah.
But don't do it because it's an old dog and you want to get a puppy, or you can't afford to pay the vet bills, or, There's all kinds of things. But one of the reasons why I started thinking about this was because I did a reading for a lady the other day who just got a puppy. And the puppy and the other dog that they have aren't getting along really well. And she's thinking about giving the puppy away. Okay, it's only been like a week, right?
Right.
And when you bring a new animal into the home, it changes everything.
Yeah.
Not just for that animal that you're bringing in, but for everybody in the house as well.
The dynamic and the energy changes.
Like having another baby.
Oh, yeah.
Bringing a baby into the house. There's an adjustment period.
Yeah.
You're not just going to bring, I can't say nobody ever has, but for the most part, you're not going to get a new pet, bring them into the house, and all of a sudden everybody is just happy and,
No.
They may think that this is a friend that I'm going to play with, but once that friend doesn't leave and they have to share their house, things can start to change. We've seen it.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, when we brought Zuma in with Sequoia, who's no longer living, and Sabbath, who is, there was quite a huge adjustment.
There was.
You have to pay attention a lot because you're dealing with a puppy that doesn't understand limitations and boundaries, just like a toddler or an infant doesn't understand, when it's appropriate and not appropriate to cry. They don't care if it's 3 o'clock in the morning. If they're hungry and tired or upset or not feeling well, they're going to do it.
Yep.
Just like if a puppy's got to go poo in the middle of the night and you're not waking up,
they're gonna go.
They don't understand appropriateness and potty training and all that.
You have to teach them.
So there was a huge adjustment. There was an energy change.
Yes.
You could feel that too.
Mm-hmm.
And you can almost correlate that now to like Marina living here full time.
Yes.
Now, that you can feel the energy change.
You can.
There's an adjustment for everybody getting used to being around. I mean, she used to be here 3 days a week.
Yeah. It's not as big of an adjustment, but it's still any kind of an adjustment.
Even for the animals. Because they're kind of tripping like, whoa, hey, there's that little girl again. What's she doing? Hey, little girl, what are you doing here?
She comes back. Yeah. It just is getting used to a whole different dynamic. So when I hear people be like, well, I've had this dog for a week and it's just not working the way I thought it would. Okay, well, what are you doing to correct the situation? Right. Are you freaking out, first of all?
That doesn't help.
No, it doesn't. And it actually makes the situation worse.
Right.
You can't freak out and yell, and it not only makes the situation worse, but the dogs don't know what they're being yelled at for because this is their natural way of dealing with things. Right. So it would basically be
they just hear anger and think they're scared of you.
Right. Just, it's different for people and humans, but let me put it into this way that let's just say that you meet somebody on the street and you shake their hand and somebody yells at you to stop shaking their hand.
Right.
Okay. Somebody, maybe a different kind of being or whatever, yells at you to stop shaking their hand. But that's what you know. That's what you do. This is how you handle things.
Right.
And now you're being yelled at and you don't know why.
Right.
It just confuses the situation. So this kind of situation, bringing a new puppy or a new cat, we've dealt with all of it. We've brought cats into the situation. We've brought puppies in, and we have had bad situations. Sequoia did go after Zuma and drew blood, and he needed sutures. Mm-hmm. It did happen, and it was my fault, really, for putting them in the situation that they were in. And that's another thing that we have to examine is why is this happening? Is it something I'm doing? Because I let all 3 dogs have a bone within the same vicinity of each other, and I shouldn't have.
No.
So you have to look at it, too, as what did I do to create this situation?
Yeah.
And how can I change it?
Right.
It's not just them. You can't just you can't just expect for them to know what they're supposed to do.
No.
No.
And he wasn't maimed. I mean,
No.
I see in hindsight, you're right, having all the bones in the same room causes some tension. And
there was already tension because she was old and she didn't want a puppy around. And so it really was my fault. And,
I mean, okay, so like if the dog is excessively barking, okay, like for instance, and we have this happen sometimes, we have to raise our voice and say, hey, shut up.
Right.
Calm down.
You wonder if that even works.
But when you hear guys like this freaking guy catty cornered to our backyard, that he'll come out. I don't hear the dog making a sound during this point.
Right.
And I hear him come out there and talk to him, like yell at him.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, what? I didn't even hear the dog doing anything.
Right.
And then every now and then the dog's out there till like wee hours of the morning just barking. Right.
Yep.
And nobody, I don't know if these people work nights or they're gone.
Horrible.
But the poor thing, it's like, eh.
Right. Yeah. I hate those types of situations.
It's not just barking because it's a dog.
Right.
Okay. It's trying to say something.
Exactly. Yeah.
What is it telling us?
Yes, that's a great point, and I'm glad that you brought that up because I do see it a lot of times. Like I did a reading recently for a lady that's like, well, my dog is staring at me, standing in the middle of the room and staring at me and not eating and this type of thing. Well, so is there something wrong with my dog? Well, do you think there's something wrong with your dog? Is that behavior unusual? If it is, then there's probably something wrong because your dog cannot come up to you and say, hey, lady, I don't feel good.
Right.
You know what I mean? They have to find these unique ways to tell you, and you have to be open to them because I see it all the time. It's one of the hardest parts of my job, actually. And you've seen me come home and actually cry because it hurts my feelings sometimes the way people take care of their animals.
You know, take it from like a normal average person, meaning somebody that can't communicate intuitively with animals. Mm-hmm. A pet owner, right? Yeah. It's like any relationship. If you get them as a young baby, this pet, at first it might be harder to read them, understand what the problem is.
Yes, for sure.
But as you establish a relationship, hopefully it grows and gets old with you. You see those quirks in your animal because you're around them. You know their behavior.
Yes.
So if something is out of the ordinary, if you're well into this relationship with this animal and something's seems out of the ordinary, then it probably is.
Right. Exactly.
Right. I mean, because it's like I would know you coming home. It's like if you're upset or in a bad mood about something, what's up, babe?
Yeah.
You know, it's that simple.
Yes.
We can still read each other. You are still communicating with that animal intuitively, but maybe not hearing them.
Right.
You know?
No, absolutely.
You're seeing and feeling their energy, but you can't hear what they're saying. You're lucky because you can they can't diagnose themselves to you, but they can tell you what is bothering them and you can kind of help figure out.
Yeah, exactly. It can be really frustrating in those types of situations, though, you know, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
I'm very thankful to have the
abilities
that I have. But yeah, it's kind of like a double-edged sword sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
I love talking to him, but it makes me a very emotional person. You probably remember this story. This is a couple months ago. I went out to do a bird groom, and I get to the house. This lady told me that she had a cockatiel, and cockatiels are the small little, they're kind of like, I don't know how to explain. They're little birds. They're not bigger. And they have, I don't know. They're just
kind
more
of grayish
quiet.
or white.
Yeah,
and they
they're
have
more
like an
mellow.
orange dot on their cheek.
So they're more on the mellow side
feathers.
of the bird species.
Yeah.
Okay. So I get out there, and this lady does not have a cockatiel. She has a mini macaw, and those birds are very rare. You don't see them often. They're absolutely gorgeous. I think we may even have a flock of wild ones here in Simi because they look very similar. Huh. So I get there, and she takes me to the cage, and the cage has, I don't know what kind of wire, like a mesh around it, all the way around it, and it's secured with zip ties to the cage. And the only areas that are open are the food bowl areas. And this bird has been in that cage for 20 years. I lost my mind. Like, I couldn't groom the bird. I mean, I couldn't get in the cage to groom the bird, but I couldn't handle it. I've told her, I'm like, I can't do this. This is not a way for this bird to live. Like, why make a bird live like that?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That's heartbreaking.
Oh, well, they're pretty to look at. You can't even see that bird through all that mesh. That bird can't see out. He hasn't had new toys. He hasn't had his cage cleaned. Right. Like, why have him? Those are situations where I definitely believe that people should find a new home for their animals.
Yeah.
There's no reason. And I told her, I said, I will help you find a way out with that bird right now. And I think once I told her that it was a rare bird, that she was like, saw dollar signs. So maybe I shouldn't have said that.
I've grown up with birds. And, you know, as a kid, I had an uncle that had a lot of, parrots and finches and parakeets and what you were just talking about, cockatiels.
Yeah.
My own parents had a parrot and a parakeet and a cockatiel. I had other aunt that did. So I was around them a lot. My dad's sister bred them for cockatiels for a little while.
Yeah.
But I got to be honest, that's the one animal as far as normal domestic kind of pets that humans have that I have a big problem with.
Yes, it's on the list
wings,
for me.
Man. They have wings. They're meant to fly.
Yes.
They're not meant to sit in a cage so a human can go, ooh, what pretty colors you have.
No.
And sounds you make. First of all, some of them are obnoxious. My uncle's, man, just because my uncle's mouth was so bad, he had an African, not African gray, but what were the green ones?
Oh, it's an Amazon.
Amazon, thank you. And man, that thing had a sailor's tongue on it.
A lot of them do, and you have to ask yourself why. Not just like that situation because your uncle had a potty mouth, but like there's a cockatoo, I can't remember what its name is, but it's famous on the internet for the fact that whoever had this bird before this bird, all it did was yell. And so that bird is just constantly with just profanity, and it's like, that's the way that bird was being treated for being put in a cage that it didn't ask to be in. Yeah. So there are people that take really good care of their birds, and I'm not saying that nobody should have them, but if you're going to put them in a cage just to look at them, please don't do that. No. It's so cruel. And feed them seed, and they need special diets. They need fruits and vegetables and legumes and all kinds of different things, not seed. Right. It's like, it's so frustrating
and a lot
for
of
me.
enrichment,
I'm so passionate about
enrichment
it.
too, like not just to sit on a perch.
Yes.
They need things. But again, I don't even like that bothers me thinking of that poor thing.
Yeah.
Because I do see it as a life, and people that do that are just looking for pets, and I'm looking at it as that's a life, and what a way to spend your life.
Especially a long life.
A long life.
Because they live a long time, and they have very special requirements. You can't use Teflon in a house with a bird, because if you overheat it, it will kill that bird. Yep. My brother's grandparents had a bird that died that way. Right. You can't use candles or air fresheners, or you're asking for problems. I see it all the time. Most of the people that I see that I groom their birds, they don't know the first thing about taking care of a bird. Yeah. And it makes me very sad, and I do the best that I can to educate people, but it's definitely one of those topics I'm very passionate about. I used to be involved in bird rescue, and I've seen stuff. I've seen a lot of things, and it's why I don't do rescue anymore. It's horrible, but something else on this topic, it's because you had mentioned that you feel this way as a species about birds, as do I, but I also feel this way about reptiles. There's no reason to not take care of a reptile the way it should be taken care of if you're going to have one. Right. I see it a lot of times. People like find a turtle outside, maybe even like just a native wild turtle, and they put it in a cage with nothing. Right. What is that poor thing supposed to do for the rest of its life? Right. It does have feelings. It does need to do things and have a life just like we do. Yep. It's not fair to just cage an animal like that. They can make great pets. I mean, bearded dragons, they're really good pets.
Yeah, they're cool.
And I know snakes are too, for the most part. I would never want one.
No, thank you.
But as far as like other things, don't bring lizards into your house and put them in a cage if you found them outside. You know, they don't want to live like that. For the most part, these animals don't want to be pets. They don't. A lot of them obviously don't have a choice. They're bred into it, and that's their life, and that's all they know. So on the flip side of this, please don't go out and buy an animal like that and then release it when it outgrows the cage. I see that all the time, too. I've found all kinds of animals over the years that it's like, how did this animal get out? Probably because somebody didn't want it anymore and they just let it free. Yeah. That's why ferrets aren't allowed in California. They're illegal in certain states, California, Hawaii, New York, I believe, because the Fish and Game is afraid that they're going to get out and become feral again. They never were feral. Ferrets never were feral, but and that they're going to take over and they're going to become wild. You know, But those things don't happen really, because those domesticated ferrets, they can't survive on their own because they're domesticated. They have no idea how to survive and they die. So if you,
my ex-brother-in-law had a little alligator that he got as a baby, and that thing quickly grew.
Oh, I can imagine.
And I think he had some ridiculous size aquarium that he had it in, and that didn't last long.
Yeah, no.
Then what do you do?
Right. Yeah.
Where do you go with that thing?
Right. I'm not going to say that I'm perfect because I've given away animals. We had 2 little turtles, but in all fairness, Marina and I went to a garage sale, and this lady was just giving them away in this little tiny container with like no food. And I felt so sorry for them and thinking they were going to go to a bad home that I brought 2 of them home. But they quickly, it became a huge nightmare. And it just wasn't feasible for us. And so we had to give them away. But we didn't take them to a pond and dump them in. No. And that's what everybody told me to do. Everybody that I asked to help me to find a home for them told me to take them to one of the ponds here in town and drop them in there.
That's ridiculous. I did the opposite once. I fished at one of the golf courses here. Caught a little baby big mouth bass. It was about maybe 9 or 10 inches when we caught it. And we used to be really into fish and had, we had freshwater, so Oscars, cichlids, and things like that.
Right.
But we had some pretty hefty fish in there, like a big clown knife, big Oscar. And so we would go into the fish shop a lot, and I told the guy, because I talked to him a lot, I said, we got a little bass, and we threw him in there, and he goes, man, that thing's going to kill everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, no way. This thing's tiny. I'm surprised. I'll be surprised if the Oscar doesn't kill it first.
Yeah. Oh, no.
He was right.
Yeah.
Everything is gone.
Yeah.
I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah,
I didn't mean for that. That was over a period of time, but I was like, who's doing it all? And you really don't know until last man standing, and then you realize, oh.
Yeah. Fish are...
Because they do it at night.
They do.
You don't see the fighting.
I had one of those... I can't remember what he was called, but he looked like this big bumblebee fish. He was very long and narrow, and we were told that once he got to a certain size, he would kill everything, and he did. And it's like, okay, so think about why they do these types of things. Well, you took this fish and you put it in a small tank, and they say that fish don't outgrow their tank. Well, they do. What happens is, especially with goldfish, and this is something to remember, is that they have a sensor kind of. So they say they grow to the size of their tank, but actually that's not how it works. What's happening is that the water is coming out. It's evaporating, right? Mm-hmm. And you're adding new water. And every time you add new water, it makes them think that they're in a larger area of water, and so they grow. So that's how that works, okay? Now, goldfish grow twice as fast as anything else, and they are the dirtiest fish possible. They're so gross. Yeah. So just stay away from goldfish, seriously. Like, that's something, it's like, why do you want these as a pet? And as far as the feelings from fish
But that's Americana. It's like synonymous for Americana, the bowl and the goldfish.
I mean, honestly, I hate the way people treat betta fish. They should not be put in a bowl like that. They don't. Yeah. It's like, I'm not going to change the world. I'm not. No. Have your fish. Don't listen to me. Just do what you're going to do, but just treat them right and keep their tanks clean and understand that these are living creatures. And I don't really know how fish think. Like, I don't know. I've tried, but I don't think they think much, but they still have nerves. Right. They still have brains. They still have all of the things that we have. So we know that they feel sensations and they get hot and they get cold and all of that. Right. So please treat them as such. Don't just treat them as, it's nothing, because it's not nothing. You might reincarnate into a fish one day if you treat a fish like that. Who knows?
Yeah, you never know.
Right?
So when the heater goes out, don't let it go out for a week.
Yeah, seriously. Your fish won't be alive at that point.
No.
I mean, we've all made mistakes. I've done dumb things too. But, and you can't feel bad for them. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about on purpose. So. Anyways, moving on. Let's see. The next question I asked our listeners was if they're a dog person or a cat person.
I didn't answer that one because I was confused because I'm both.
And several people said that. And I think that's a cop-out, because I think that if you're given the option, Like if you were given the option to have one cat or one dog, which one would you pick?
Yeah, that's tough. But I guess it would depend on where I live.
Okay, well, let's say that the situation was whatever. It was good. You could have whatever you wanted.
If I had like the space in a yard and like, I would pick a dog.
Then you're a dog person.
But if I was in the city, like in, New York, in a high-rise apartment, and I want a companion, I'd probably get a cat.
Right. And that makes a lot of sense. Because I don't want to be going
downstairs to go potty all,
Right. Well, and dogs are a lot of work. And we had this conversation the other day where I would like at one point in my life to not have any pets.
Yeah.
Or maybe just a cat. And I am a dog person. I'm very much a dog person. But it's not that I don't love them. It's that I want to travel and I want to do things and not have to worry. And because they are like family to me, I do worry.
You worry.
So I think that if you say that, you want to have a dog, if the situation was perfect, you're a dog person. And if you, in that situation, would still want a cat, you're a cat person. Right. Can you be both? I can't say that you can't. Sure, maybe you can if you were like, oh, God, that's such a hard decision.
Yeah.
But most of us, I think, do know one way or another.
Right.
So for the people that answered this question, 67% said they're dog people and 33% said they're cat people. And you know what? I'll tell you why I'm not a cat person. Like, I love all animals, so please don't get me wrong here. I love them all, but I'm not a cat person. For the first time in my life, I have cats, and it wasn't by my choice. It's because I love you guys so much, and you wanted cats. But they scare me because they're a little bit quirky, and like a dog, I will go up to a dog, and I will stick my face in its face and be like, "Ishy boo 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 boo," all day long. But if the cat looks at me wrong, I'm like, okay, I'm going. Bye. Because they have sharp claws.
Well, dogs have very sharp teeth and powerful jaws. But dogs
don't bite. I mean, they do, but they don't. A dog is not going to, if you're just sitting there loving it.
Not your own dog, but you can provoke your own cat to scratch or bite you.
Cats they're crazy. I have these 2 cats I'm taking care of right now that are fine when their owners go away for like 5 days or so. They're fine. They're very sweet. And I even took Marina there the other day, and she sat on the floor and loved them, and they were great. But once we get past that, one of these cats starts to turn because he doesn't want me anymore. He wants mom and dad. And so until mom and dad comes home, I'm the target. And as soon as I start walking up the stairs, that cat goes for my leg and grabs it with its claws and its teeth. And so you can imagine me walking through this house
when like a cartoon.
When the cat starts to turn, because I know it's coming any day now. They've been gone for like a week now. I know it's coming. So it's like, okay, now I have to protect myself. I will tell you, in all of my time as a pet sitter, which has been almost 20 years, I've only been bit by a dog once. And that was because it was diabetic and blind, and I went to give insulin and didn't get away fast enough. That's my own fault. But I have been bit. I have been scratched. I have been threatened by so many cats. And I can communicate with them, and they still don't care. Mm-hmm. They don't care. It's just like a naughty kid. Birds are even worse. Like, I've been bit by more birds. I have scars everywhere from them.
I wonder if that freaks animals out, some animals out a little bit more, because I would say a majority of people can't communicate intuitively with an animal. Right. So when you do talk to them, does that make them a little bit, maybe some it calms them down. Yeah. Some animals are like, oh, cool, she can talk to me.
Yeah.
And others are like, whoa.
It varies. It definitely varies from animal to animal. Some just don't care. And usually the ones that don't are the cats. But you know what? They're the easiest to take care of because for the most part, they don't really want anything. They just want me to feed them and get out. And I have clients all the time that ask me, do my cats miss me? Probably. I don't know. It's not a dog. The cat's just like on the cat tree and just like, whatever, just feed me and get out of here, food lady.
Right.
Oh, please love on my cat. Your cat does not want me to love on it. If it does, I promise you I will. Like, I love them just as much.
Have a different form of love.
Yeah, it's different.
It's mainly on their terms, really. They don't need your approval.
They don't.
Dogs need it.
They do. They crave it. And that was a good question that we got asked actually was, do they miss me when I'm gone? Or is it just like they don't want to be alone? And They do miss their owners. It is not just that they don't want to be alone, like without human companionship. That's not it at all.
No, because you established a relationship with them.
Exactly. Like I'm saying about these cats, it's the same thing with any animal that I take care of for the most part. They're usually fine for like 3, 4, 5 days. And then after that, they're just like, you again? Really? Because they just want their owners, you know? Yeah. They love us. Like they're a member of the family, and that's why, like, I know we get annoyed sometimes, but they follow us everywhere, especially dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Because they want to be with us.
Right.
We're their pack, and where's my pack leader going?
Right.
I need to go with them.
I've had indoor cats and I've had outdoor cats, so I know that the outdoors are a little more independent and less cuddly, and the indoors, they're still independent, but they'll be cuddly, you know, almost because they just sort of cave at some point and realize, oh, you're sitting there, so I'm going to sit next to you, and then they get cuddly. But dogs, I don't think, like, with that situation that they miss the owner as much as they miss the repetition, the things the routine, being the routine the same. So they want that same person, as where a dog, even if you came in and filled the dog's routine, took him for a walk, you know, take him to go to the bathroom, feed him, and then come back and do the same, they're actually missing the connection with the owner.
They are. And you know what? I have clients that say the same thing about their dogs. For me, actually, like, because I have a lot that I do Monday through Friday in the middle of the day when people are at work. And people tell me that when it's the weekend, it's like they can almost tell that their dogs like miss me, you know? And I think that's so sweet. And then Monday morning I come in and they're just as happy to see me as if I was
Murphy.
their owner.
Murphy's like, oh,
Murphy
it's
can give
you
a crap
again.
less. Yeah. He's like, okay, ball lady, get the ball chucker. Let's go.
Make it quick.
That dog. Yeah, we talked about him in the last episode.
Yeah.
He's like, I walk him twice a day, Monday through Friday, and we're like, gosh, I don't even know, Ren and Stimpy or whatever. We're just, he makes me crazy and I make him crazy, and it's like a human dog relationship that's very much like human. He's the most human dog I've ever met. But anyways, enough about Murphy, because we've already talked about him in the previous one. So let's see, what else could we talk about? Let's see. Why do some pets urinate where they shouldn't when they're mad? And so again, it comes kind of down to, well, how else are they supposed to show you that they're mad?
Can't talk.
Especially if they've tried everything else. And a sick animal will actually a lot of times go straight for that method. In my first couple of years of pet sitting, I took care of this cat that had cancer, and he was pretty much on his last legs, and I really didn't want the owners to go away, but what are you going to do? So like halfway through the sit, I go and I sit down on the couch, and the cat sits on me and pees blood on my leg. And the cat had no other way of letting me know that he wasn't feeling well in that serious of a way, because I already knew he was sick. So it was like, even with the animal communication, it's still really hard for them to say, hey, I feel worse than I did before. But that's exactly what this cat told me. Yeah. So they will find creative ways to tell you those types of things.
That's exact. You hit that nail on the head. It's like, how else, if you were in that position, how else would you?
Right. Like babies, they cry. And dogs sometimes bark, or they'll stare at you. Sabbath whines. He whines like a baby, and we have to figure out what it is that he wants. They just have no other way of communicating with us. And even though that seems like an inappropriate way for them to show, which I guess it is a good way for them to show, because it gets your attention. Right. So if something like that happens, you have to kind of look at, okay, well, what could it be? Could it be that I'm not spending enough time at home, or maybe the animal doesn't feel well, or whatever. Right. You have to kind of process of elimination it, just like with a kid. It's just very similar. You kind of got to think along the lines in the same way. It's like talking to somebody that doesn't speak the same language as you. You kind of have to figure it out. Yeah. You know? So here's another good one I liked. Why do some pets, quote, run away? And I love that term, because let me tell you something. They're not running away. No. They don't know what they're doing. No. When like, let's say your gardener leaves the gate open and your dogs go. They're not like, oh my gosh, I'm free.
Right.
My owners will never
They're
find
exploring.
me. They don't know any better.
Yeah, their natural instinct is to forage and explore.
Right. So really the best thing that you can do is work with your dogs when they're little to teach them recall, to teach them to come back to you on command, because otherwise they really don't understand. As they start to get older, they do. Things start to instinctively understand, like Sabbath, I can take him to the park and walk him off leash and he won't go far. Now, right. Zuma, if I tried to do that, he'd probably be like, bye. But at the same time, he's kind of nervous and wants to be close by, but I still wouldn't trust him.
Right.
But it's not that he wants to leave. No. You know, that's not it.
He wants to explore.
Right, exactly. So when you say that a pet has run away, they haven't run away, they're lost. Yeah. That's a big difference. They're lost. And again, how are they supposed to tell people that they're lost, you know, or where their owners are? And so I get a lot of requests for readings for lost pets, a lot. Yeah, and they're very, very frustrating. I am not a collar person. I think animals should wear collars, some of them, cats especially, if they go outside, even inside. But I've had some situations that I've seen with dogs where wearing collars has proven to cause problems. Right. Getting choked. Yeah. So I don't like to leave collars on our dogs when they're by themselves. I don't do that. But there are other things you can do. Microchip them. Yeah. There's no reason to not microchip your pet. Now, is there a possibility that somebody won't have your animal scanned? Yeah, maybe. But there's more of a chance that they will. So there's
especially nowadays. Exactly.
Yeah. So that really, they're not running away. They're just lost.
And it's not that expensive to do.
No, it's not. Actually, some places like our shelter here, they do it for free once a year right before the 4th of July.
Yeah, because I've seen stories about that, read them somewhere where somebody stole somebody's pet or whatever, and they did happen to scan, and it came up missing.
Yeah, years later.
Yeah, and it's like good. I'm glad that they, you know.
Exactly.
Sucks for that dog, because that dog probably got used to a new situation.
Yeah.
But
that's a whole
hopefully
other
they were treated well.
Yeah. That's a whole thing. I mean, I honestly, if like one of our dogs went missing, I can't even.
Like a kid.
Yeah.
I couldn't fathom it.
I couldn't either. So I definitely feel for the people that it happens to, and I wish that I could help each and every one of them. Unfortunately, it just doesn't work like that. Mm-hmm. So let's see what else I have, because I know I have a lot of good stuff, and I'm running out of time. Uh-oh. I know. I wanted to talk about horses, because I have had an influx of horse people on my group, my Facebook group recently. And it's funny because I remember I told you a couple of days ago that I kept seeing visions of horses, and I didn't know why. I wonder if this is why, because I was going to start working with more horses. Yeah. But I do want to tell people briefly about horses and about a little bit how they think, because I've never had one. I've honestly never pet sat for a horse. I'm a little bit afraid of them. I'm allergic to them. So I don't have any contact except this way. Right. I find them absolutely fascinating. Yeah. They have amazing brains and amazing intellect. And one of the things that I'm seeing a lot that I didn't even know was going on is people trade horses, and they sell horses. They'll keep them for a year and then they'll sell them. And then people are constantly switching horses. Oh. And these horses are very confused. So I get a lot of people asking me, why won't this horse do certain things it wants me to do, like tricks or whatever? I don't know what those things are called, but I get some people that are very specific. I'm like, I don't know what that is.
Like equestrian type
yeah,
things.
Exactly. Right. Because first of all, let's say that horse has had 5 owners before you, and each time maybe those owners have used different terms, different words, maybe different languages. Maybe they've treated that horse differently. You have no idea what kind of trauma that horse has come to you with, along with the fact that they're wondering, why was I moved again? Because I understand that, like, there's horses that, like, you know, you have in races and whatever, and I'm not even going to go there. Right. And so people, you know, they're prize-winning horses and they want to sell them. But these horses do like to work. Don't get me wrong. The racing, I don't think they mind so much. I don't think they mind like the Disneyland horses. I've talked to them. I don't think they look at it as a job. It's what they're here to do. But they don't want to be moved from home to home to home to home. They don't. And then treated bad because they don't understand the commands. Like, people get frustrated.
Right.
And they would be like, well, maybe if I whip this horse a little bit, it'll understand what I'm saying. No, it won't.
Right.
So that's my take on horses. They're very, very, very smart. They need to be stimulated all the time. They need a lot of exercise. But really, for the most part, I think what people forget is that they are emotional creatures and they need to be
They look very
as
deep
such.
when you look into one, you know. I don't know, they just seem very deep.
They are. They are. They
like elephants almost to me, like, whoa.
And
there's a lot going on in there.
Yeah, I see it a lot too, and it kind of makes me sad. Even horses that are like afraid of things from previous homes, like getting close to a street, like maybe they were told, don't, get close to that street, and they were whipped every time they did. And so now the next owner tries to get them close to a street, and they don't understand why that horse won't do that. And so they whip them. And it's like, please stop.
Right.
Like, please just work with these animals. They understand, like, telepathically, if you try and just relax and send them things, they understand. Or get a horse trainer or an animal communicator.
I wonder if there's anybody that's ever worked with a horse that doesn't use a whip.
Oh, I'm sure there are. I'm sure it can't be that standard. What's the
purpose of that? Man?
I don't know. I took horseback riding lessons when I was little, and I was very highly allergic, and I'm very glad, because that was something that definitely bothered me a lot. Yeah. But you know what? They have their own things, and I can't get involved in all
I'm terrified of them, and it's funny. I'll share that story that when I was, I think, second grade or something, first or second grade, I had a babysitter when I was growing up in Venice that used to take us every year to Griffith Park, because she was a horse fanatic. So we would go horseback riding at Griffith Park.
Uh-huh.
And this is what her babysitting thing did every year. At least once a year. She took every group that she had every year. So I happened to be there for one of these years. And so I'm a very little kid. So obviously my feet don't fit the stirrups.
Right.
You're just kind of trotting along and it's, this is fun.
Yeah.
I was a little bit Dennis the Menace, like kind of get into some trouble.
Or like problem child.
Yeah, problem child. So the tour guide is taking this group of us on horses and telling us, don't kick the horses, because, that's what teaches them to run.
Mm-hmm.
And some of you, your feet can't fit in the stirrups, so that's not a good idea.
Right.
And we're going through tunnels, and so please, obviously, don't kick them in the tunnels. She said, as a matter of fact, they're trained to not run in the tunnels. So here's me. I bet I can prove that one wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I start kicking that thing in the tunnel. And no, it didn't run in the tunnel. But as soon as daylight came, man, and we got to the end of that tunnel, that thing took off.
Yeah.
And it scared the daylights out of me because I was bouncing and could barely hold on. And the guide I'm screaming for my mom, who ironically had gotten on a horse she couldn't control, and it took off and left the group and just went around this track in circles for about a couple hours.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm screaming for my mom. She's nowhere to be found because she's on Tonto somewhere else. And this guide comes racing up on her horse next to me, stops my horse. And, that was terrifying. So fast forward, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, I went to Rosarito, Mexico, and with my mom and my ex-brother-in-law, we're like, oh, it'd be fun to, like, they just have bareback horses, and just ride on the beach.
Right on the beach, yeah.
And so we pay the guy to get on 3 of the horses, and his buddy comes up on a horse. It's a big tourist trap there. So he's like, do you want to run? And I was like, no.
No.
First of all, there's no stirrups,
right.
Period. Mm-hmm. Not that that's going to save me from bouncing off. But anyways, so we're like, no. But him and his buddy was trotting along with us. And in a couple points, we're like, they gave the look.
Yeah.
And I'm like, like joking around.
No.
I'm like,
I almost died as a kid.
You want to see this guy get upset? Make that horse run.
Buddy.
And my mom was on a horse. So I'm like, do not.
Yeah, seriously.
Make these horses run.
No, that wouldn't have been good.
So luckily they didn't. But I was very worried. I was having flashbacks of the Griffith Park
I'm sure you were, and I understand now why you probably never want to get on a horse.
I wonder
again.
how many times that babysitter told that story to future kids that she babysat for.
Well, or the people at Griffith Park that,
we had
don't be like this kid. Yeah. That wouldn't surprise me. You and my brother both. It's like, yeah. Okay, so let's see how much time. I still got a little time. Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to talk about feeding animals, okay? Because this is something else, too, that, again, they can't tell you when they're hungry. So people are just like, okay, well, whatever. Maybe I'll just throw some food down once a day for them, and they'll be fine.
Right.
Please don't feed your animals once a day.
No.
It's not healthy.
No.
It's not healthy. They don't like it. Some dogs, like, if they're used to it, then they just get on that cycle. Like I do have one dog that I walk every day and he eats once a day, but he'll usually leave a little bit and nibble later. But just think about what it would be like for you if you only ate once a day.
But you were trying to cram in 3 meals worth of food.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why bloat is a prevalent thing. We have a free-fed Great Dane, whose luckily bowl is high enough that the other dog can't get to it. But that's so that he hopefully won't bloat like that. Right. So he can spread his meals out. I don't like to give him more than like 3 cups at a time. And he needs to eat like 9 to 10 cups a day.
Yeah.
And then Sabbath here has to have structured meals because
But he's funny even with the 3 cups. Zuma, he'll nibble some of it, come back, finish it later.
He knows. Yeah. And really, if a dog can control it like Zuma, that's ideal.
Yeah.
But most of them can't.
Sabbath can't.
Sabbath would eat a whole bag of food in one day if we let him do that.
And whine for more.
Exactly. Probably. And get sick and still whine for more.
Yeah.
So, but you also can't go by like if they trying to tell you that they're hungry because like Fat Sabbath over here, he's always hungry. So you can't always fall for that one either. But I tell people at least 2 meals a day. That seems fair to me.
Oh, yeah.
They get used to it. Their body gets used to it. You can also sometimes mess with those times of day because their body does get used to it. And if they miss it, then their body is like already producing those acids. And so like sometimes Sabbath's stomach will get all like weird if he doesn't eat the night before. And by his own terms. Right. And yeah, it makes them sick. So if you kind of fluctuate them a little bit, and stagger an hour here, an hour there.
Think of yourself. I mean, would you really want to be fed 3 meals in one meal?
Right, exactly.
And have a bowl of water that looks like it hasn't been changed in days or.
I like that you just brought that up. Do you know why? See, I could sit here all day and do this. Here's a couple of things. Don't withhold water from your dogs. Okay.
No.
People do that. You have no idea how many people do that. I won't sit for dogs that don't have water available to them.
I've heard you say
that.
The owners say they don't want them to go pee while they're at work, so they don't give them water.
Nope.
Are you kidding me?
No, I won't sit for them.
I mean what's going on?
Right. I would much rather have to clean up pee than have a dehydrated animal, and that's exactly what's happening. So yeah, that's something that I won't do. And please don't do that. Just make it available to them at all times. People think I'm crazy because even when Zuma was in the crate, I had a water dish and water bottle in there. This dog drinks so much water. He drinks more water than me. So I can't imagine leaving him with no water. But then you said something else that was good. Water dish. Please clean the dog's water dishes as well.
Yeah.
You have no idea how often I see that. And when I do, like in my pet sitting job, I'll clean them. And I think people get used to that and they just leave them for me to clean the next time. But it tastes bad. They don't like it. It gets like a funny film on it. And then they can get bacteria issues from that.
Yep.
So, yeah. You have to keep them clean. I mean, do they like to sit in the dirt? Yeah, they do. But you still have to keep their bowls clean and give them clean food and...
Think about it. I mean, where is the bowl sitting? Is it sitting in direct sun all day? Is it just hotter than hot?
Right.
Change it once in a while.
We change all the water
Would
dishes.
You want a green glass of water fresh out of the tap?
Yeah.
Probably not. At 90 degrees?
No. We had a dog that wouldn't drink anything but fresh water. Like if it was even a little bit dirty, she was like, no.
You're going to have to change that.
Yeah.
Now,
these two don't care. But
no.
Still, I care. I care.
Overly.
Yeah. Well, whatever.
I know.
That's what it is. Yeah. Real quick, I wanted to give an update on my Raven story. I'm just going to do it. I know we only have a couple minutes, but because we did talk about it in episode 1 and how I was trying to build this relationship with this Raven.
That goes that far back?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I know. Pretty cool.
I didn't realize that.
So it is taking time, obviously, because I know it's a her now. And before I was calling her Jasper because I thought it was a boy. And so now I'm calling her Jasmine. So Jasmine only has 1 foot. And so I know which Raven it is. And you witnessed it the other day that she was sitting on the front lawn and she was looking at me in the window. She was the only one there and she wasn't scared and she was still eating and like enjoying, like everything was fine. You know, she's like, that's my buddy in the window. You saw it.
That's cool.
Yeah. So the next time that we talk about this, I'm hoping that I'll be able to like sit out there and maybe even hand her food.
Right.
But see, the thing is I get attached and like, remember a couple weeks ago, I was like, where is she? I haven't seen her in like a week. Yeah. And it's bad. So hopefully
she's cute.
Be
a
with
little
us
1-footed hopper.
She's adorable. Yeah. So that's my goal is, if you're following this story, we're working on it. She is responding. She hangs out and doesn't fly off with the other ravens when they fly away. So we are working on it.
I see her here sometimes by herself.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
The Raven
it can
lady.
be done. That's what I'm trying to prove. Wild animals, they can be our friends too.
Yeah, for sure.
So. Yay.
Yay.
I could go on and on and on.
Yeah, it kind of feels like you just scratch it. and
right?
Oh, we're done?
That's why when you're like the bulls, I was like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Right? So, there will be a part 3.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's why I said I
Something
could
to
do
look
a
forward
whole
to.
podcast just about animals.
Right.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, before we say goodbye, would you like to share any of your information?
Yes, and I have new changes because I like to mess with people.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make things easier and more streamlined because honestly, when we first started I first started doing readings, I didn't want anybody to know it was me. I didn't want people to know I had these abilities, and now I'm fully out of the closet.
Right.
And so I changed my Beyond the Bridge page. It is now Samantha Jones, animal communicator and psychic medium. So That's how you can find me now on Facebook instead of Beyond the Bridge. And then, of course, on the internet at SamanthaJonesPsychicMedium.com. And that also has affected my Instagram. So that one is also Samantha Jones Psychic Medium. Nice. So I'm just trying to make it easier for everybody. And then for our podcast, if you'd like to follow us on social media, we have a Facebook and an Instagram. Those are at Spiritual Joneses. And our Twitter is at Spiritual Jones. And then if you're trying to find us on a podcast platform, the easiest way to find us is to type in Spiritual Joneses. I have tried it under a lot of different ways to find out what is the easiest. But if you put those 2 words in, nobody else uses those 2 words, and our podcast should come up.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good information to know.
Thank you. And you, sir?
Oh, well, I do art. So if you like art, you can find me on the web, djonesartcollection.com. And I'm also present on Facebook and Instagram, and that is at djonesartcollection for both of those. Also do music and play in the band Gypsy Brown. You can find us on the web, gypsybrown.com, Brown with an E. And we are also present on Facebook and Instagram as well. Instagram is Gypsy Brown Music.
Yay.
So, yeah, just going at it. I just did a picture the other day. I put up of Dwayne and Greg Allman of the Allman Brothers. So
it's a cool one.
It's cool.
Just check it out. Yeah.
So, doing it.
Yeah.
Keep going for it.
Yeah.
Reaching for it.
Keep it on.
Yeah.
Follow your dreams, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
That is what
you got to take care of business, but don't forget about the dreams.
You got to.
Because your dreams can become the business, too.
It can be.
So
we're hoping to be proof of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate everybody listening in. We had a good one.
Yes. Hope you enjoyed it.
And as Samantha said, we probably have a part 3 on this one.
Probably have a part 20 on this one.
But anyways, you all have a great week.
Yes.
And we appreciate it. And until next week, peace and love.